Well,
Because, yeah, go ahead.
well, no, I say it didn't happen in just one moment. Uh, it's I look I've I've been born and grown up during this entire period. Um, in the 1950s, and actually this was just before I was born, when Israel with France and Britain tried to take control of the Suez Canal, and President Eisenhower said, "Hell no, no, get back in your own box." He prevented that. It was, I don't want to say there was a group of prominent Zionists that got together and said, "Hey, let's do this," but I think there was an aspect of that because when the movie Exodus came out with Paul Newman, and I think it was Eva Marie Saint who played opposite of him, that was told this story of it was basically the David and Goliath story retold in modern terms, with Zionists as David against this Goliath of the Arab nations who was trying to crush them just because they wanted to be free. So that became part of American culture. It didn't really necessarily translate into political support at that time, because at the same time as that movie's out, you have John F. Kennedy beginning to try to stop Israel from getting the nuclear weapon. And I think there's compelling evidence to show that Israel was involved with the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And yet that gets swept under the way. Lyndon Baines Johnson was an early Zionist. He was romantically linked to a woman who had ties with Mossad. So he was being manipulated, and actually, made some money off of it too. He was an incredibly corrupt president. So then we get into the war, the 6-Day War in '67. Again, Israel prevails in that. It reinforces the David versus Goliath image. Then you get to the Yom Kippur War, 1973. And so in that, again, Israel was prevailing over Jordan, Egypt, Syria. And then it was in that period that the USS Liberty is attacked, and that gets completely... The USS Liberty happened while Lyndon Johnson was president back in I think, '67. And that gets completely swept under the rug, completely covered up. So there's an effort to, there's a propaganda effort to portray Israel as, good and righteous, and actually within it, within the evangelical movement, there was seen this is a fulfillment of prophecy. The establishment of the nation of Israel was fulfilling the prophecy of events that have to take place before Jesus returns. And so that becomes then part of the official narrative. All of this gets, I think it really starts getting solidified after the attacks on 9/11, because Israel, I believe Israel played a direct role in allowing that to happen. They knew they knew that the plot was afoot, as did some within the CIA. You can say that it was allowed deliberately to happen, or it was a case where the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. I'll let people argue that out on their own. But what is clear is that from the Zionist standpoint, that attack was going to provide a predicate for the United States now to invade Afghanistan, invade Iraq, ultimately take out Syria. This plan to eliminate all these Arab Muslim nations on the periphery. And so, I think that's when AIPAC really became a powerful force in U.S. politics. So over the last 25 years, and they become more blatant with each passing year. And this is, I think, 2026 will be marked as the year where they finally cross the line. And the combination of the genocide being inflicted upon the Palestinian people, upon both Palestinians who are Muslim, Palestinians who are Christian, and then the direct and gross interference in U.S. domestic politics. So there wasn't one moment, but I think it's become particularly pervasive over the last 25 years.